Hi, this is Maciek from DCX, and we are following the immersion rack installation manual. We already assembled the rack frame. Now we are following up with the rest of the items, so the installation of the enclosures, distribution components, and the dry cooler system for the immersion rack. Now we need a few tools to follow up on that one, and you will get some of the items with the package. You need some tools though on your side. We are using the two diameters of the fittings. We need the imbus key, which is number 5, so pretty important. And all those, screws here, all those elements, these are using the number 5 imbus key. And we need the 10 diameter key for the assembly of all other components. And that's about it. We will also need a simple screwdriver to just open the compartment of the dry cooler system, and that's basically all. You need also some coffee, some time, and some protective gloves. That's probably all. We assembled the rack frame, and I will quickly describe what's the basic operation of the rack. We designed the rack so we can save on space. So we don't have large tanks, large open tanks, which take lots of space. We have the rack frame, which takes approximately 1 square meter, some space in the front, and the limited amount of space in the back. And that rack can host 24 S19 miners or 36 watts miners. So pretty dense setup, from 120 up to 140, 150 kilowatts of heat transfer, so pretty dense. Now, as you can see, we have here the rack frame already populated with the enclosures. It's pretty simple. Just please remember when you put the enclosures into the rack frame, you need to use those elements which protect the enclosures from falling off. That's pretty important to remove those only when you have that maintenance platform attached properly, so you can extract the bottom enclosure or the middle enclosure, right? The top one enclosure doesn't move anywhere, it just stays like that one. And if you ever need to do any maintenance on that one, you just use simple 3-step ladder, nothing else required. Still, the whole idea about the immersion is to save the time, have the less maintenance, so there's 50% less maintenance than you normally would have with the air-cooled systems. We have the platform, which is attached to the rack already, and it allows us to retract the bottom enclosure from the rack. And the same platform is required when we would like to remove the middle enclosure. So I will just quickly demonstrate that one. There you go. I will retract the maintenance platform here on both sides. Now let me grab the covers, let's say holders here. There you go. That's properly secured. That enclosure will not go anywhere right now. And now on the other side. enclosure are the director plates. Those plates are made for the specific miner model. Lucky we have basically maybe 2 or 3 main models. One is S19, so kind of powerhouse of every mining operation right now, and the second one is Watts miners. There are different other models, but these are most used for the immersion cooling, also for the ability to overclock those miners and availability of the custom firmware for those. Now we have the plates. Actually, we have 4 plates which we use to configure that enclosure. Those are made for the S19s. So they have the, let's say, openings or cutoffs. Now they are, let's say, closed, but you can open that. If you are using, let's say, just one miner, you can just open only one plate and make sure that the whole flow goes through that miner only. And obviously you can configure that with up to 8 S19 miners. So you can use 4 plates, completely close the enclosure and just open the areas where the miners are installed. So we're installing that inside of the enclosure, and we'll show in a moment how they should be installed. We are installing the flow director plates. Those plates are divided into 4 pieces, so you can have the full flexibility on how you install your miners. As you can see, the miners are installed in the way that we having the hash boards closer to the inlet section or the middle section of the enclosure. We have director plates installed in the enclosure, and as you can see, they are fully constraining the flow. There are no open areas, and you can install that carefully as much as you would like. 4 elements, and you are able to configure that differently according to your requirements. We divided that by 4 because then we can properly close the flow in the enclosure, and also you can choose how you like to install your S19 miner. There are 2 schools of thought. One is that the miner should be installed or inverted, so we have the power connections from the bottom. There are some flip kits which we actually don't recommend because these are exposing the bus bars, which is pretty dangerous. And but you can actually, using those plates, you can install your S19 miners either in the standard way or inverted. So you should have the lower numbers on the miner sensors indicated, and that may help you in your operation. So those plates allow you to allow complete flexibility, because you can install that this way or that way. So the hash boards can be closer to the sides of the enclosure, closer to the middle of the enclosure. So full flexibility using those. And there are also small openings here which allow you to set up that miner properly on the above the openings here. So pretty neat solution, and we actually deliver that also as an upgrade kit for the existing customers. That was about the configuration of the enclosure. In terms of the rest of the configuration, is pretty simple in terms of the fluid levels or other elements. The only or final thing which you need to do when you are starting your enclosure is the fluid level inside. The fluid level should be just 1 millimeter above the divider plate which you have inside of the enclosure, just to make sure that there's nice waterfall, that the hottest part of the fluid, which stratifies inside of the enclosure, it's pumped, but still there are different temperatures depending on the height of the fluid. Then we would like that hottest phase or hottest part of the fluid to just overflow to the recovery channel, to the back of the enclosure, being pushed or evacuated from the enclosure and pushed through the heat exchanger, exchanging the heat with the primary loop of the system. So pretty simple to do. Just make sure the fluid level is properly set. Maybe just one final item in terms of the enclosure installation. You may not notice that, but here below the end of the enclosure there are small hooks which allow you to secure your cabling. Often we see that customers are choosing to just lay cabling in that hottest part of the fluid, which is not recommended actually. So we have those small hooks here in the different elements of the enclosure, which you will notice. Just look it up here, 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 and there on both sides. So it allows you to just use the zip tie or Velcro strap and just secure the cabling here. So it's nice to configure. There's no Ethernet or power cabling just laying on top of the miners. So we really recommend that one. In front of the enclosure, just one final thing. We resigned from those bars recently, but basically we leave that L-shaped elements here, and these allow you to install any power distribution component, any Ethernet component or Ethernet switch, whatever, or any additional power supply if you use some spare or additional power supplies for your miners for some extreme overclocking purpose. And here there's an element which you can wiggle and basically remove from the enclosure, so you can just run all that cabling here, still having your lid on top of the enclosure. That allows us to operate even in the dusty conditions, because we don't have that much open tanks which take the dust and any dirt and contamination. We don't want that. We would like to isolate the miners fully. One more thing in terms of the lid. As you can see, there's also a small frame. If you will see here, you will see that there is a small element here. We left that so we can just attach some rubber or any other material or element just to secure any openings here when there will be any cabling here, when there will be open area here in the front and in the back. You can just use some element here, some materials. We offer or let's propose rubber elements, rubber foam or anything else, just to secure that. Additionally, if you operate in the real dusty area, right? So you can just use that element just to mount anything else and protect it from any dust or humidity, for that matter, going inside of the enclosure. So that's the neat package. I believe pretty convenient to operate. Now I will close that truck. I will push back the enclosure, and we'll see what's in the back of the rack system. Here, the back of the immersion rack system. As you can see here, we have two racks assembled together with one manifold. That's actually the bigger manifold which we normally use. We normally would use for such small solutions, we would use the smaller profile. That's the bigger one which is used for the scale-out solutions when you have multiple racks lined up. So in the back of the enclosures, we have two components which are pretty crucial for the proper heat exchange. These are not the, let's say, simple metal tanks without anything. These are actually smart tanks or active tanks. Those tanks have the circulation pump, so the pump which circulates the fluid inside of that enclosure. That fluid doesn't leave the enclosure, it just circulates internally. And we have heat exchanger, which we right now oversize for the bigger one, trying to catch up with the rising densities of that immersion cooling systems. And that heat exchanger exchanges the heat between the electric fluid inside and the water or water glycol mixture on outside, so primary loop and inside the secondary loop. So we have the internal loop is fully closed. You don't need to do anything with that one. There's only one thing what you need to do when you're starting the operation. You just need to remove the caps from inside of the enclosure. So from the fittings, there are plastic caps on top of the inlet and outlet, and you need to just open one valve which is hidden here below the cover, which is protective cover. There's one valve on the bottom of the enclosure which you need to open, which I will show you in a moment. And on the primary loop side, so here you have two fittings. One fitting is outlet from the enclosure, so the hot or heated water goes out of the heat exchanger, and Here is the inlet, the enclosure. So at the bottom, you are sucking the colder or let's say warm water from the dry cooler system or facility loop to the heat exchanger, right? So it travels from the bottom to the top and from the top away from the enclosure. So simple as that. So this is the manifold. And the manifold is used to supply the rack, actually two racks standing side by side. So if you are buying one manifold and one rack, you can always use the same manifold for the next expansion without, let's say, buying additional component. Those manifolds are rather bigger than we normally use for such small installation. These are used for the scale-up systems. So when we have multiple racks lined up. The manifold has a few elements here, so it has the elbows here to make sure that the hose goes down and it's nicely tacked around the rack frames. It has ball valves, so we make sure that we supply only those enclosures which actually work. It has manometer and thermomanometer to measure the pressures and temperatures on both cold and hot sides, so supply and return. And it has venting valves, so you can vent on both hot and cold side. You can vent the system, which is pretty important in such installations. Now the manifold is pretty simple element, a little bit heavy, but it hangs on the rack frame, and there are openings here and screws. You can pretty easily position that manifold on the one rack or two racks. It will stay like that and will be firmly secured. So let's find out how we configure the properly manifold system. I mean the supply and return to the manifold. The supply and return is located at the bottom of the manifold, and you can attach different piping here just in the way as it is convenient for you. It's convenient to route the tubing correctly. I have additional manifold here, so I will just quickly illustrate how to properly connect the tubing. The manifold is using two diameters. On the supply and return from the enclosures, we use 1 inch diameter tubing and 1 inch fitting, so 1 inch D and 25. And as you can see here, we have valves as described on the, so we can basically close each specific enclosure and supply only the enclosure which we would like in which we would like to operate. Now at the bottom, we use DN 50 or 2 inch diameter fittings, and we need to connect the tubing somehow. So we provide the simple elements, so muff and the hose fitting, both 2 inch, and we just need to connect that. You can use different techniques, and we actually leave that on your side. So the final assembly of that component will be on your side. It's pretty easy with the silicone which we provide, which we include with the each rack set. So we can use our silicone, and in the separate video we'll describe how to properly connect two fittings with the silicone which we provide. And also you can use Teflon tape or the thread, any other proper technique used for the hot water connection. So if you have some contractor, just trust them and they will choose the best way. Here just assembling that just for the quick demonstration, so I'm not using any sealant here. So we just connect that one, and we will connect that one here. If you will find yourself in the situation when it's better for you to just run the piping on this side to the other side of the wall, the manifold actually can be attached on the wall. It doesn't have to actually be located on the rack frame, so it's your choice. We have mounting elements here which allow you to just position that pretty easily on the let's say any location. You can also use the elbows which we provided, the N25 or 2 inch elbows, which you can also secure here. And you'll have the GBS clamps which we normally use. That's 60-63 diameter, and that's used for the hose we deliver. Now we have the 2 inch hose, which I will quickly show you. I will not attach that one right now, but just to demonstrate, we're using 4-bar capable hot steam, hot water hose, which you will normally attach. And just to mention that one, as I said, I will not right now fight with that fitting and try to squeeze it here. That will take some time. But if you attach it fully, just one thing that's pretty important. So if you are attaching that, make sure that you are going with the hose to the very end of that fitting. It's pretty important. Make sure that you're reaching the end of the fitting, and then you attach the GPS clamp, probably here, just maybe 5 millimeters from the back of from the end of that kind of hexagon or octagon connection here, right? So this is pretty important to properly attach that hose. It will carry the flow from the dry cooler system to the manifold, and then from the manifold to the enclosure fittings. Now the configuration of the manifold or connection of the manifold to the immersion enclosure. As you know, we have the 1-inch fittings on the manifold, and actually we need some 1-inch tubing which we provide to connect both outlet and supply to the immersion enclosure. Now we have fittings which correspond with the levels of the enclosures. So I should connect the top one to the top one, right? It is actually your choice. In such small installations, it doesn't matter really which one will be supplied and which one will be returned. Just make sure you'll take some marker and just connect properly, or let's say mark properly. So that's cold and that's hot, or just supply or return. So your choice how you mark it. Just don't make sure that you are connected that properly. That's the outlet from the enclosure, so hotter water goes out, and that's the inlet. So this is where the colder water, actually 40 degrees Celsius, which is as our maximum temperature on inlet. So 40 degrees Celsius, 110 Fahrenheit, so pretty warm, I would say, right? So we actually in the business of heat transfer, not especially cooling. So let's find out how to properly measure the length of the tubing. With the top one, as mentioned, pretty short distances. Those top enclosures doesn't move anywhere, but the middle one and the bottom one, well, it's retracted, so we need to leave a slack. Now I will push away that enclosure. It's standing on the maintenance platform on the other side of the frag frame, and now I just need to secure the cable here, or tubing here, and just please notice that element here. I'm pushing the tubing to the far end, to the very end of that hexagon element here on that hose fitting, right? I'm pushing that to the very end, so I'm not leaving any space here. So that's first. Secondly, I'm installing the GPS clamp pretty close. So 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, that's just fine. And I'm securing that one right now with the key number 10 here. So doing that to the very end. So now I will take the piping and I will measure how much piping I actually need to make sure that I will reach the fittings on the enclosure. Now, just just to make sure that you have enough, I think that's about that. Okay. So I'm just measuring here. It's not a rocket science. It doesn't require to be very specific measurement. Just make sure that you are doing that well enough. We have the relatively straight edge cut. Now I will push back the enclosure, and now we can secure that one using also GPS clamp on the fitting. If that will be returned from the enclosure, so the hot or let's say red part of that system, then I will connect that in that way. And actually there's a little effort here to just to make sure that the tubing goes properly. Here you can just attach it also here. So different ways to make sure that you connected that fitting, you know, fully. The piping sits well. It will be, if that will be pressurized, there will be no flow constraints here. So yeah, that will be it. So this is the back of the system. There's a little bit more work which you need to put into the solution to just connect everything properly. Just don't rush, reserve a few hours to do that, and you'll be just fine.